This might be the smallest and most powerful light on the market. This is the Dangyou Molus G300. So this is a 300 watt bicolor light, which has a capacity up to getting up to 500 watts, which is pretty crazy when you're using something called max mode. So we're going to talk about 3 different lighting scenarios that you can use with this one light, and obviously there is a ton more that you can do with this light. And a quick disclaimer, June did send me out this light to check out and review on my channel, but they don't get to review this video or see what I say before I post it. Now, with all that said though, I probably will be making this my go-to travel light and potentially also my go-to filming YouTube light because of how small and also how powerful this light is. Now, before we get into the 3 different filming and lighting scenarios and setups, let's do a quick overview on this entire light itself. It does cost $600 in total for this one light, which is a pretty penny. I'm not gonna lie, that is a lot of money for a light. Granted, this is a 300/500 watt powered light, and you do get a ballast, which is not common in this price bracket. With all that said, and granted, there is no proper carrying case. It just has this cardboard box. So if you want to DIY it, you can make this into a proper carrying case. I wish when you start spending more and more money on lights, you do get a proper carrying case for it, because if you're spending a lot of money on lights, you do want to put it in a proper carrying case. So not having this in a proper carrying case definitely is a bit of a bummer. I obviously have a bunch of hard cases, so that's why I'm going to be throwing this light myself. I've only had this light for a couple of weeks now, and I like to use my gear and I don't like to baby my gear. So there's already kind of rips in this cardboard box. So that cardboard box may or most likely not be staying. The entire light itself is a really high quality light. It does seem like it's a metal backing over here, but it seems like on the rest of it is a hard plastic and a high quality aluminum around the entire light. Don't quote me for that. And then on the bottom is a full metal build, what on this thing right here, which is actually really important, because when you are using this light, you can twist and move this knob right here, but the bottom of this part right here, which is the biggest and most important part, is when you're pinning this on a stand, this is a full metal design, so it's not likely to break. And then there is an umbrella support on the bottom right here, and it is a bones mount too, so you do have this little switch right here which you push down and you move to release the bones mount. A quick thought on this little mount right here. I do worry about this mount breaking potentially by dropping it or something like that. I don't think it's the best and most well designed right here. So when you push it back, I am worried that over time this could be a potential breaking point. But I do like this, and every time I have pinned some giant softbox using this, it has yet to bow on me for whatsoever using this little, whatever this is called. It has yet to dip on me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This is the ballast design and box for powering and controlling this light. Most other cheaper end lights, especially in the 600 and lower end range, you have all of these controls on the light itself, which can be a pro and a con depending on how you look on it. It's a pro when you don't have to have 2 setup things, and sometimes they're both really big, but in this case these are obviously extremely tiny, all said and done. What is a big con is when you take this light and you put it really high in the air and you need to control it, you're gonna always have to use an app with other cheaper end lights. Now with this light specifically, you have a ballast to control the entire light's entirely. So the control box overall is a plastic. You do have this little thing up here to hold it. You do also have a USB-C, which I think is for firmware updating, but via the app, which is really cool, you can firmware update it using just your iPhone or phone. So with all that said, let's get into our 3 different scenarios and lighting setups. We'll start off with the outside scene. So for the outside scene, what I am going to be doing here is going to be using a overhead of diffusion to diffuse myself overhead. This is literally midday around 2 p.m. in San Diego, so it is really bright. I am going to be using the max mode here, turning on the 500 watt lights and matching the color temperature outside to kind of light up my face. The last thing I would do in this type of scenario is adding a negative fill just to add a little bit more contrast. But with all said and done, this is a super easy light just to use with that. The second scenario is for a product shoot. So in this, I was using a support rod with a clamp, a super clamp on top of it. I overhead rigged this light with the ballast hanging down. This allowed me to have the light be right on top. I was pointing it down with a giant softbox, and I was getting a couple different shots that kind of looked like this with this entire lighting setup. Now lastly, which I am curious to, and I will be testing out right now, is the YouTube setup. So it kind of gives you an idea. All right, so we're at 5600 on my other light at 5%. And we're gonna slowly move this up. This was one of the cons I had saw with this light. So I was at a 300 watt light on my Nanlite FS 300 bicolor light as well. This light just provides a ton more lux power. This is at 1% right now, which this is way too bright to be at 1%. And I think that is some con that I see. For some reason, I also noticed that the color temperatures right now, this is at 5600. I feel like it's a little bit warmer, similar to 5200. So I feel like you have to compensate to being around probably 58, maybe even 6,000 to get that more of a cooler temperature. And then nextly, this is still way too bright. This is at 1%. This should not be this bright at 1%. I feel like it's so bright. But yeah, so this is at 1% and it's just extremely bright. I have to move this light physically back, I think. So that kind of looks very similar to what it looked like before. Yeah, so those are a couple of the cons with this light. When it's at 1%, I feel like it's not, it's just overly bright. I have to push this light physically back when it's at only 1%. So it feels a little bit way too powerful in my opinion. It also seems like the color temperature is off by maybe 3,000 to 4,000 Kelvin. So right now I'm at 6,000 Kelvin, which when on the Nanlite FS 300, which I did get that light specifically using a color temperature reader, I did get that light red. So at 5,500, it's actually 5,400. So that light's even slightly off as well. But this one I feel like is significantly way more off. So for example, if I bring it down to 5,600, it looks really warm, and I'm gonna have to go around probably 6,000 to get that cooler temperature that I'm looking for to kind of give a more accurate description of my skin. And even still in this shot, I feel like I'm kind of overblown out and a little bit too bright in my own personal opinion. So the second thing is this app is really good, but it's interesting because it gives you intervals. It gives you literally intervals where you can go by 0.1%. So you can go down, consistently die by 1%. It's not until once you hit 1%, I'm gonna get there eventually. 1% is when it actually starts getting brighter. And that was something that I noticed. It's like it gives you those 0.1% intervals, but those don't seem like they really truly apply until you get to the higher interval ranges. So I don't know why you are able to have this 0.1% control when in reality it's either 1% is on or it's off. There's no 0.1% it's on, which maybe in a future update or a firmware update, it will allow you to go a little bit dimmer than what this is right now using the app, which that would be great in my opinion, because right now I feel like this again is just too bright for 1%. But this could be me, but I have used Aperture, I've used Nanlite, I've used other companies and lights before. This just feels a little bit too bright. Final thoughts though, this light is a really powerful tiny light and it's perfect for travel. I'm actually pitting two of these lights like this vertically. I can fit two of these lights in one Nanlite FS 300. So I'm able to literally pack double the amount of lights with this one single thing. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid light. The fact that you can have this entire light, a 500 watt light, 300 watt light, however you want to look at it, in the footprint that it is, you can fit 2 of these lights, including the ballasts, in one spot for my Nanlite 300, which is really impressive that you can have 2 lights replace one single 300 watt light in the footprint of a bag or a Pelican case, which could be to some people worth the money and worth having the control of the ballast and not having to use an app or having to take the light down from a stand or doing anything like that. If you want to see another powerful tool for filmmakers for shooting B-roll, check out this video right here. YouTube recommends you might like this video right here. Until next one, guys, peace.